But then he said something to me that I'll never forget, something that shaped my view as a young leader, and something I believe is more true today than ever. He said, a good leader can lead anything. A good leader can lead anything. And 20 years later, with a lot more life experience and a lot more leadership experience, with a lot more stories and scars, with a lot more gray hair and some victories and some losses, I absolutely believe that is true, that a good leader can lead anything. Welcome to the Matt Ware Show, a podcast for leaders who want more and won't settle for less. Straight talk to help you lead better, live bolder, and not lose yourself in the process. If you're serious about going to the next level in life and leadership, you're in the right place. Hey everybody, glad to have you with us for another episode of the Matt Ware Show, where we talk about going to the next level in life and leadership. I'll never forget the day when I was 28 years old and my boss called me into his office to chat. And I know that statement alone might drive fear into the hearts of some people. You know, maybe you're watching or listening and saying, man, that's my worst nightmare when I get called into the boss's office. But I had a good relationship with him. He'd always been good to me. So I wasn't afraid, but I was curious. I'd worked for him for about 6 months or so, and things seemed to be going well as far as I could tell. It was a small organization, small team, and people seemed to like me. My department was making progress, and so I was, like I said, more curious than anything else. I sat down, and my boss told me he wanted to talk about leadership. That was almost 20 years ago, but I was just as excited to talk about it then as I am now. So I leaned in and I expected him to give me, you know, some pointers, some perspective, some tips maybe on where I could grow or improve. But I was not at all prepared for the direction the conversation was about to go, because he opened the discussion by saying this. He said, "You are a leader. And in fact, you are a better leader than I am." And initially, I did not take this as a compliment. I actually took it as a misjudgment, or maybe, you know, he just had like this false humility thing or something like that, because I liked him. I respected him. He was one of those bosses that made you feel valued and appreciated. He was easygoing, easy to get along with, laid back, maybe to a fault. You know, he wasn't really a dreamer. He wasn't a driver. He didn't have big goals or ambition. Definitely the kind of guy who would rather, you know, sit down and have a cup of coffee with you than develop a strategic plan. As I look back, I think, you know, maybe more of a friend or a father figure, depending on your age, than he was a coach or a mentor. But I was 28 and he was 50 plus. He'd been leading this particular organization for over 20 years. He was universally loved, respected, and I was just some kid that he took a chance on. And who knows if he even should have taken a chance on me, right? So in my mind, there was no way I was a better leader than he was. He went on to talk about some of the skills that he saw in me, contrasted with what he saw in himself. And I protested, you know, I've only been here for a short time compared to, you know, his long tenure. And he obviously had way more life experience, more industry experience, not to mention that he had a really loyal following that he had built over the years. He was very gracious in his response, but he dismissed all my pushback and continued to just, you know, affirm the things that he saw in me. And I still think back about that conversation and just appreciate and cherish that. But then he said something to me that I'll never forget, something that shaped my view as a young leader, and something I believe is more true today than ever. He said, a good leader can lead anything. A good leader can lead anything. And 20 years later, with a lot more life experience and a lot more leadership experience, with a lot more stories and scars, with a lot more gray hair and some victories and some losses, I absolutely believe that is true, that a good leader can lead anything. And what I want to talk about today is why I believe that's true. Why can a good leader lead just about anything? Well, it comes down to the idea that leadership really is a meta skill. It's a skill that sits over and above a whole bunch of other skills that support it, that complement it. Leadership is a master skill. See, if you can grow in the skill of leadership, really what you're doing is growing in many different sub-skills that fall underneath it. That's why leadership itself is not industry specific. It's not product specific. It's not service specific. It's a skill that transcends any particular situation or circumstance. That's why I believe that if you have and you develop the meta skill of leadership, you can lead just about anything. And if you're not familiar with that term, meta skill, it's a concept that's become more popular over the last few years, and it's loosely defined this way. Meta skill is a higher order skill. It's a transferable skill that really what it does is it enhances your ability to learn and apply other skills. Okay, so it's not a specific technical skill. It's not a soft skill. It's a broad sort of foundational ability that gives you a framework to keep learning, to keep adapting. And that ultimately makes you more versatile and makes you more effective across different industries and even different job roles. Gustavo Rossetti said it this way. He said, a meta skill is a master skill that magnifies and activates other skills. Okay, it's something that magnifies and activates other skills. Other things that are considered meta skills are things like critical thinking, emotional intelligence, resilience, adaptability, creativity, things like this. These are skills that are transferable because they cross different contexts and different cultures. They kind of work anywhere. These are things that are foundational because they set the stage, as sort of building blocks that can be built upon. These are skills that are versatile because you can apply them in different situations, in different contexts. And these are also skills that are permanent because once you learn these, once you have these, they tend to stick with you, even if your environment changes or your setting changes or the world around you changes. And I believe leadership really is a meta skill. And here's the reason why. Number one, because leadership is not a singular skill. It's not just one thing. It's a vast array of different skills that all have to come together and work together to produce this thing that we identify as leadership. Leadership is this overarching concept that encompasses many different facets, many different components underneath it. It's the master skill that sits above the others. And number two, because leadership skill gives you the framework to develop other skills that you're going to need for your particular situation. It's a skill that lets you pick up other skills. Different situations, different seasons in your life and leadership require different things, and leadership provides a framework that you can add to the tools as you need them. Leadership is a meta skill. And that's why people who have developed the skill of leadership find themselves many times in unique positions in their organization, often overseeing other people, other projects, other departments, even entire companies that on the surface might seem too big for them or might even seem like it's beyond them, beyond what they can do based on their resume, based on their background. People with leadership skills have often direct reports who have a higher technical skill than they do, have more industry knowledge than they do, have more tenure with the company, more experience in that particular field or skill set. It's very common for someone in a leadership role to have people in their team who know more about a specific thing than that team leader does. People with leadership skills are often tasked with projects that they don't have direct experience with, something they don't have expertise in specifically, either because they're new to the company or they're new to the department or because it's a brand new initiative, or they're simply the ones who are willing to take the risk and other people are willing to take the risk on them. People with leadership skills are the ones who are tapped to be project managers and team leaders and presidents and CEOs, many times not because they work their way through the ranks, although that does sometimes happen, but more importantly, because they have this skill set, this thing in them that's unique. Really, it's a set of skills, what we're calling a meta skill, that other people, no matter how smart they are, no matter how experienced they are, no matter how loyal they are, no matter how dedicated they are, no matter how productive they are, they simply don't have. And here's what we have to understand. Leadership is not simply a function of more time on the job. It's not automatically earned just by hitting certain KPIs. It's not bestowed for perfect attendance or good behavior. It's not granted just because someone has had a certain number of reps or because there's nowhere else to move them or to promote them to keep them happy so they can get higher compensation in the organization. Leadership on your team, leadership in your organization must be given only to people who are actively growing in and have attained some level of proficiency in the skill, in the meta skill called leadership. We've all been in organizations where people were in leadership roles, but had no leadership skills, right? And we sit there and we watch it and we wonder, how in the world did this person become a leader? Who promoted them? How did they get put in charge? Who saw what in them and gave them this position, this title, or whatever it is? In pop culture, The Office is a perfect example of this, right? It's a caricature of this concept. You've got Michael Scott, the awkward, bumbling leader who is the regional manager at the Scranton branch of Dunder Mifflin, and really, he lacks leadership skills. What we find out as the storyline unfolds is that he was actually one of the top salesmen in the company's history, right? I mean, he could produce numbers like nobody's business, but somewhere along the way, somebody decided that because he was a good salesman, he would be a good leader of people who do sales. Only to find out these are entirely different skill sets. And some of us have lived this out in real life, right? Throughout the 9 seasons of the show, we see him just continue to struggle in a leadership role. But we also see him occasionally get to jump back into a sales conversation where he just kills it. And the reason why is because he was very skilled in sales. He was not skilled in leadership. And I see this disconnect all the time with clients I work with. They're skilled in a specific technical thing, so much so that at some point they decided to start a business performing that skill. And as long as they can spend the majority of their time and energy doing that particular thing, everything's fine. But when they grow the organization to the point that they can't do it all themselves, and now they need to build a team, whether that's hiring people or outsourcing or partnering with contractors, whatever it is, that's when they begin to really struggle. That's when the growth stalls. That's when frustration starts to get really high. And they can't figure out why, when they were so good at that technical skill, that they can't build or lead a company that delivers on that very same thing. And the reason is this: because you having one specific technical skill, even at a very high level, is entirely different than possessing the meta skill of leadership. Being a great painter is entirely different than leading a painting company. Being a great financial advisor is entirely different than overseeing a financial services firm. Being a great cop is entirely different than being the chief. Go back to the example of Michael Scott. Being a great paper salesman is entirely different than being a branch manager for a paper company. And listen, no amount of technical skill will make up for a lack of leadership skill. And no amount of any one particular skill will make up for the lack of the meta skill that we call leadership. Okay, I think I've made that point, but this is why my boss that day said that a good leader can lead anything. Because he recognized that the skill of leadership is something that really can be transferred to different situations, to different contexts, into different companies, and even into entirely different industries. Some of you may know the name Alan Mulally. He was the legendary CEO of Ford and really turned things around for them, in the Great Recession. But he was actually a high-level executive with Boeing before that. He went from the aerospace industry to the automotive industry because his skill set wasn't really engineering. It was really leadership. Angela Arendt, the CEO of Burberry, left and became the senior VP of retail for Apple because her skill set was not just that she knew fashion and clothing or even retail, it's that she knew leadership. The list goes on and on. And the reason is because the skill that's required is not about one situation or one company or one industry. The leadership itself is the skill. And I've been able to serve clients as an executive leadership coach who are in drastically different industries, in the trades, in hospitality, in tourism, in nonprofits. In some cases, I had a little bit of industry knowledge, but in many cases, I did not. And it'd be easy to say, well, how can you help someone grow their HVAC company when you don't know anything about HVAC? And it's true. I know nothing about HVAC. I just want the heat to come up or the air conditioning to come on when I press the button on the thermostat. How can you help somebody build their restaurant empire when you've never waited tables and never worked in a kitchen? And that's true. I appreciate the operation of a restaurant, but mostly I just want the server to be friendly, and I want the food to come out the way that I ordered it in a reasonable amount of time. How can you help somebody grow their med spa when you refuse to get Botox, even though you need it? No comments from my esthetician friends. But the reason why is because my skill is not mechanical. My skill is not in customer service. My skill set is not in medical care or personal care or any of those things. My skill set is in leadership. And that's what I helped other leaders grow in, because that's exactly what's needed to get any organization to grow to the level where it's making an impact and an influence in the world. And if you're a business owner or an organizational leader who feels like you're stuck, you're stagnant, you've hit a plateau, you've hit a ceiling, let me tell you something. The key to the next level of your growth is not to get better at the technical skill your company provides. It's to get better at the meta skill of leadership. Because leadership is the only thing that can take you to the next level. It's the only thing that can help you break through. It's the only thing that will make the difference, that will make the impact that you're looking for. Listen, no amount of technical skill will ever make up for a deficiency in leadership skill. And if you get the leadership skill you need, you'll have no problem finding people with the technical skills that you need to do everything that your organization needs to do. And what's more, you'll be able to do that not just in your current context, but in any situation, in any context that you walk into in the future. And the reason why is because good leaders really can lead just about anything. We've talked about leadership as a meta skill, a skill that sits over and above a whole bunch of other skills, each of them very important on their own, but not until they're wielded together do they combine to create this skill we call leadership. And I want to spend the rest of our time today talking about 5 of the most important specific skills that leaders must have, must embody, must grow in, must focus on if they want to grow in the meta skill of leadership. Now, to be clear, there are not just 5, there probably are 100, but from my viewpoint, my perspective, my experience, these are 5 that are absolute non-negotiables that a leader must have. Number 1 is this: vision casting. Vision casting. The ability to see and to speak vision is one of the most important skills a leader can have. One of the most important roles that a leader can play in their organization. I've talked about this in a previous episode back when this was called the Shift Podcast. One of the recent sessions that I did in consulting with the leadership team at Keller Williams was about this. This is so foundational to me and to the way that I see the role of a leader. A leader must be the one who carries vision and casts vision for what they're leading. Vision cannot be delegated. Vision cannot be outsourced. Vision cannot be assigned to someone else, whether it's internal or external. Only the leader is responsible to see into the future of where they're going and where they're taking the organization. And only the leader is responsible to speak it and to make it come alive in the minds and the hearts of the people they serve. A leader carries vision and casts vision. A leader sees vision and speaks vision. Vision is the special, sacred, singular responsibility that belongs to a leader. One of John Maxwell's famous statements about this is that a leader has to see more and before. A leader sees more than others see, and they see before others see. What's he talking about? He's talking about vision. And I think this is both a gift and a skill. I think it's something that's intuitive in the heart of a leader, but it's also something that's developed, that's cultivated over time. Great leaders somehow have this ability, this skill, because remember, it is part of the meta skill set of leadership. They have this skill to see the impossible and to see the invisible, to see not just what is, but what could be, what should be. In fact, this is one of the easiest differentiators between leaders and followers. Followers see what is, leaders see what could be and what should be. Followers see today and leaders see tomorrow. Leaders have the skill of vision. Number 2, a non-negotiable skill that falls under the meta skill of leadership is communication. Leaders are in a unique position where everyone is looking to them for guidance and direction and encouragement and feedback. And because of that position, one of the leader's primary responsibilities is to communicate in all different kind of ways, in every different direction, to all kinds of different people. Leaders communicate to their team members, to their investors, to their board, to their customers or clients, to the broad constituent base. They communicate with trusted advisors and partners. They communicate with key vendors and experts. Depending on the organization, they may communicate directly to the public. They may communicate to the market. They communicate in meetings and emails and memos. They're on camera, they're in person, they're on Zoom, they do it via text. Leaders must be expert communicators. And I believe the level to which you can effectively communicate is the level to which you can effectively lead. And it's true, some people are natural communicators. They're good with their words and all of that. But it's also true that communication is a skill that can be developed. It is a skill that can be cultivated. You can grow as a communicator. Sometimes when leaders hear that word communication, they picture public speaking on a stage in front of a big crowd. And, depending on your context and your organization, that might be something that you need to do. But for most people, most of the time, it's not that formal. It's not that official. It's the weekly team meeting. It's the monthly email. It's the Zoom call with your leadership team. It's the quick texts and emails, all those seemingly regular routine interactions. That's what makes up this big bucket that we call communication. And all those little communications are what people around you use to form their opinion of you, their perspective of you. In my experience, far too often leaders think they are better communicators than they actually are. They think they were clear on the direction. They think they solidified the strategy. They made the assignment or closed the loop or set the expectation, only to find out later that the people who were on the other side didn't feel that way at all. I could do a whole episode on communication for leaders, but for today, as one of the key skills under this meta skill of leadership, I would just say this. If there's one communication thing that you could do or could improve, I would urge you to simply try to be clear when you communicate. You don't have to be eloquent or entertaining. You don't have to be impressive or inspiring. You don't have to be a great storyteller. You don't have to be particularly moving or motivating. Just be clear. And for most leaders, that will help you grow in the skill of communication. Number 3, the third non-negotiable skill under the meta skill of leadership is developing people. Developing people. Leaders must have the ability to develop people. And I almost used the term team building when I wrote this, but I think developing people is actually a better way to say this because it's a bigger, broader concept. Sometimes leaders think that if they just hire good people, trained people, talented people, trustworthy people, then they've done their job. Hiring good people is only part of the equation. Great leaders know how to get good people, but they also know how to grow good people. Because here's the reality. If you're going to have a great team, you have to buy people and you have to build people. You've got to get them and you've got to grow them. And no matter how good they are when they come to you, even if these are award-winning, rock star, Hall of Fame level people, whatever, everybody in your organization has to be developed in order to make the maximum contribution to your vision. That's why developing people is one of the most essential skill sets for leaders to have. Leadership is not simply compiling people, it's cultivating people. It's not just getting them, it's growing them. Leaders must develop people. One of the truest tests of your leadership is this. Are your people growing? Are they getting better? If they're not growing, if they're not getting better, if they're not advancing, if they're not contributing more now than they were a year ago, I would challenge you that maybe you need to grow in the skill of developing your people. By the way, this is one of the big differences between bosses and leaders. Bosses drive, leaders develop. Bosses give orders and leaders give opportunities. Bosses are most interested in getting something out of you, and leaders are most interested in depositing something in you. If you're going to grow in the meta skill of leadership, you have to grow in the skill of developing your people. Number 4, the fourth, I believe, non-negotiable skill that falls under the meta skill of leadership is decision-making. Decision-making. Leaders, whether they like it or not, are in a nonstop role of making decisions. Small decisions and big decisions, decisions that impact the next meeting and also that impact the next decade, right? Decisions that involve significant resources or strategy. Decisions about people, about projects, sometimes even about the purpose, the mission of the organization. Leadership is a constant barrage of decisions. And there's lots of tools and resources out there that talk about this. We don't have time to get in the weeds on all those tactical things today. But the point is this: your leadership success will largely rest on your ability to consistently make good decisions. And if you can't make good decisions because you don't know how to gather the right people, gather the right information, do it at the right time, or if you won't make good decisions because you suffer from paralysis by analysis or fear or second guessing or overthinking, if you don't make good decisions for whatever reason, your leadership credibility will suffer for it. Leaders are known for their decisions. Now, let me take a little pressure off and remind you that leaders don't always make the right decision, right? We all get it wrong sometimes. We would all do some things different in hindsight, right? I mean, if I knew then what I know now. But leaders do have to have the ability to make a decision and not languish in ambiguity forever. They have to have the ability to assess that decision once it is made and see if it was the right one, not just keep charging blindly forward. They have to have the ability to adjust on their decision, to make course corrections in the future if it's necessary. I heard someone say once that leaders make decisions and then they make their decisions work. And I think that's true. We have to have the ability to make a decision, and then we also have to do what it takes to assess it and adjust it so that ultimately it works. But here's the thing. Some people think decision making is purely a gut instinct, that they can just, follow their heart and in the moment they'll intuitively know the right thing to do. And I do think gut instinct matters. I do think intuition is important, and you will be the most intuitive in the areas that you're gifted in. But the skill of decision making is not just trusting your gut. It's knowing what information you need, who or where you can get it from, and what timing you need it in order to make the best decision that can be made when that decision needs to be made. And it's not a formula. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Decision-making is different and dynamic, and it changes based on the situation and the stakes that are involved. But it is a non-negotiable skill within this meta skill of leadership. You have to be able to be a decision maker. Number 5, and the last one, although again, not an exhaustive list, but these are just, my experience, these 5, you have to have these for sure, just as a baseline to develop the leadership skill that you want. Number 5 is problem solving. Problem solving. Leaders solve problems, right? That's what we do. In fact, Carly Fiorina, the legendary CEO of Hewlett Packard, said that really is the essence of it. She said leadership is problem solving. Okay, that's her entire definition of what it means to be a leader. And the truth is, some days, some seasons, it does feel like that's all you're doing is putting out fires and getting something or someone unstuck, dealing with a crisis. I think those are the unwritten tasks that are on a leader's job description. I heard Elon Musk talk about this not too long ago. He said that the CEO's role, the point leader's role, is a distillation of dealing with the worst problems in the organization. He said that a CEO, a point leader, should only spend time on what's going wrong because you don't need to spend time on the things that are going right. Now, I don't know if I agree that that's the only thing you should spend your time on as a leader, but his point is well taken, that leaders have to be good at problem solving. Dave Ramsey talks about this, in his stage of life and leadership. It's one of the only things he does is he comes in and he figures out why something is broken at Ramsey, and he figures out how to fix it. Okay, leaders have this ability. We have this skill set to solve problems. Now, it doesn't mean you have to do it all alone. Doesn't mean that you're always the one that has the magic pill or the silver bullet that you just come in and, wave your wand and the issues all go away. But it does mean that you know how to accurately assess what's broken, why it's broken, and how it can get on a path to being fixed. If you can't handle problems, if you only want to have fun meetings and fun conversations, if you want low stress and low pressure, you may not enjoy leadership, because leaders have the skill of problem solving. Now, like I mentioned earlier, there are a ton more skills that a leader needs to have to be effective, some of which are universal, some of which may be specific, to their situation or their context. But in my experience, these are 5 of the absolute non-negotiable skills under the meta skill, the master skill of leadership: vision casting, communication, people development, decision-making, and problem solving. And if you have these, you're going to be a leader who can lead just about anything, because all of these skills are always needed in any leadership context. As I think back about that conversation with my boss that day, I think maybe he saw some of these things in me. And granted, I was only 28 at the time, and so maybe it was more of an aspirational conversation. I certainly needed to grow and develop in all 5 of those things, and I need to grow in them now. But the point is that he saw it in me, maybe even before I saw it in myself, which really is a testament to the fact that his leadership was probably at a higher level than he gave himself credit for. He was casting vision. He was communicating encouragement and affirmation to me. He was developing me in that very conversation. He was embodying these skills that I'm talking about. And as I've had the privilege of leading in different contexts over the years and coaching and consulting so many other leaders in one way or another, I really do believe that his statement was true. A good leader really can lead just about anything. If you have the meta skill of leadership, and you grow it and you develop it by cultivating some of these other skills that fall underneath it, who knows where your leadership may go and where it may grow into at some point in the future. Hey, I want to say thank you for joining me today on the Matt Ware Show. If this was helpful to you, would you help me get the word out? Would you share this with another leader, somebody who could benefit from it, somebody who could learn from it, somebody who could be challenged by it? If you're not already, subscribe so that you get notified when new episodes, new content comes. If you want to connect with me more, you can always find me at themattware.com and at themattware on all the social media channels. I do have a free email newsletter I send out every week with leadership thoughts and insights and perspective. You can sign up there. Until next time, go lead better and live bolder.